Warp Factor News. You just got warped up.
Get warped.
Beamed. You just got beamed up.
We're gonna work that out. We'll
do.
We'll workshop that and figure out.
Tell you, I saw Roddenberry was on the
Roddenberry. I can't help it.
Every time.
My name is Roddenberry.
Rod. You know, his parents. You know, they're extremely creative individuals. You know,
Gene Roddenberry is at the hospital, and like they're filling in the name, and he makes a mistake, and he starts with his last name in the first name column. He's like,
anyways, he was on the Shuttlepod show doing an interview, and I'm like, well, you know, because he was supposed to be on our show, on our Raw Rant show, but because of the strike, everything got canceled. So Raw Rant, and then we got demonetized. Anyway, so Rod was supposed to come on our show, and we were going to do a whole thing. So now he ends up on the Shuttlepod show, which is appropriate because Shuttlepod is, of course, covering everything Star Trek. And I said, oh, well, let's find out what Rod might have talked about on our show. You know, so I watched him. And I'll take some notes. Maybe we can talk about some interesting things that he brought up, that he talked about. And, you know, I'll be real frank with you. Rod Roddenberry seems like a super nice guy, but he doesn't really know anything about Star Trek, does he? Like, he really doesn't. He's just kind of this ambassador for Star Trek, I think, because it was hilarious because they were like telling him all these things about Star Trek history. You know, you've got Connor and Dominic, you know, like saying, oh, did you remember when this happened? Or what were you thinking when this happened? And he's like, I didn't really know about that till you mentioned it right now. and they're like, oh, okay. You know, because so this whole kind of like, it's like Rod Roddenberry is kind of like Star Trek light. And I think he's just trying to keep the family dream alive. You know what I mean? Like he's like hope. That's why he's yeah. So we didn't really learn anything too heavy from here other than the fact that he didn't feel like he really knew his father. He didn't appreciate Star Trek when he was young, like most. I mean, I don't know. I guess when your dad is making Star Trek and you probably don't care about it because that's the way kids work.
Right.
You know, I was, of course, stuck attached to the TV from 5 years old on Star Trek and couldn't turn it off.
Which is why if you're a parent, you have to do a lot of drugs. Your kids don't want to do them.
Was that your excuse? Is that what you told your show?
That's right.
They do the opposite. So I mean, just kind of not a whole lot there. But if you want to go watch it and you kind of, I mean, it is kind of funny and fun and stuff like that. But really not a whole lot to give you from the interview. Other than, he's got himself attached to kind of new Star Trek and he's going to be there to cheerlead it all the way through. So there's good on that. We did get some interesting stuff.
So you're saying he's like a Star Trek cheerleader?
That's exactly what he is. He's a Star Trek cheerleader.
Fascinating.
Yeah. He's not like a Star Trek historian, which makes sense because when we were trying to get him on the show, we wanted to have him and Otoy, which is the organization that's basically doing the Star Trek website museum,
right?
That the Roddenberry Foundation is a part of, and he did not want to be on the show at the same time as them. So he's like, hey, I'm cool to come on, talk about Star Trek, my dad, blah blah blah, but I don't want to be on with the Otoy people because that's like something different. And I think the reason why is because the Otoy people are like, Star Trek Rain Man.
They're like, so episode 302. Right. Spock actually had a mole on his left thigh, and it was really funny because Kirk kept staring at it, and William Shatner made a lot of comments behind the scenes.
No, that boy. We actually know some people at Otoy. They're very nice, very cool.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just did that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they're nerds.
But so are we.
By the way, Adam in the chat right now is actually one of those guys.
He is, yes.
And and so he's saying Rod Roddenberry helped raise all the funding for the Roddenberry Archive, which is super rad.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. He's a great cheerleader. He is an awesome, he is definitely, keeping the Star Trek banner going and trying to keep the legacy of his family going. And guys like Adam and yes, some of the really appreciate all the work that you guys do because, I mean, listen, being able to have one place where you can have this archive of all the great Star Trek stuff, especially a lot of the legacy stuff that we're losing now, it's really a great thing for all Star Trek fans. So
yeah.
Very
also,
cool.
Archmage Frey is offended by my impression of him.
I knew it. I knew that you sounded like somebody. One of
He
my
had
guys.
a mole on his left nut, and
On his left nut. Well, I will tell you, I've been watching a
and it
lot of
looked like the Star Trek Starship Enterprise, actually, but not the Enterprise A, the original Enterprise, where the nacelles were slightly larger and off to the
where there's
left.
no letter yet.
And you can see if you examine his left nut here.
You're not supposed to listen. You're not supposed to see his left nut at all. It was off camera. Yeah. So I've actually, it's funny. This whole last couple weeks, I don't know how I ended up down the YouTube rabbit or the down the rabbit hole of old like Merv Griffin interviews with like Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner. Like I watched a bunch of like old archival interviews and I could not stop watching it, man. The old stuff is fat. Some of the stuff that people used to say, if you ever get a chance, go down the rabbit hole, look up like Merv Griffin interviews or some of those old, the Dave the Cavett show. There's some really interesting old stuff out there.
Merv Griffin.
Yeah. They used to, did you know that I learned that the Spock ears on the TV show, they didn't have to worry about them being so perfect because the TV screen was so small. So, but when they went to do the movies, they had to take better care of what the ears look like because the screen was so much bigger and people could see better. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, I remember I was in a film class when they were talking about how Alfred Hitchcock, I believe, used chocolate syrup for the blood in his Psycho movie. And it was because he knew it was going to be on black and white, and the darkness of it was way more and played better on screen than like red would play.
Well, and I think it's thicker, so it almost has the consistency of like.
Yeah, it looks more like what blood would look like on black and white. Yeah. I found that fascinating. Instead of using red, because red doesn't play well on black and white, it comes out of gray. And he wanted it to be black and contrasty. It's very cool. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, well, that's why he was the master. Yeah. Some more Warp Factor news. Patrick Stewart put out his memoir. And so if we've had some like news stories getting filtered out with some interesting, it's interesting about Patrick Stewart. You can tell he's like close to dying or at least very, very old because he just doesn't care what he says now. Like he'll say anything. He completely offends Tom Hardy in his book from Star Trek Nemesis in 2002.
What's the name of his book? Is like Engage or?
No, he wouldn't do that. By the way, he would never name it that. Because
what is it called?
He only wants to loosely base his like legacy on Star Trek.
What's it called?
I don't remember.
I bet you it's something Star Trek-y though. They always do that.
No, he wouldn't. I'm telling you, he would not allow that to happen. It would be something else.
Well, you know what? How much you want to bet? It's here it is. Ready? Wait for it. Ready? Making It So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. He did it.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty surprised he did that.
That's the name of his book is called Making It So. Okay.
So what you're saying is somebody got a big thing of wine, took it to his house and said, let me tell you why we got to say Making It So.
Okay? It needs to be Making It So. He goes, but I really want to call it My Homosexual Bulldog. Like, no, it's not going to work. No one's
what they did?
that.
The publishing company sent Terry Metalis to his house. That's how he got it fixed. But he's got some.
Terry spikes his drink.
He's like, listen, Patrick, here's what we're going to do. So apparently this actually really interesting story here about, and you're going to be seeing these filter in as if you haven't actually read the book yet, which I haven't had a chance to go through it. But I will. But he actually has these little tidbits of things. And the first one was about Nemesis. And Tom Hardy has become, at least he was heading into the place of being like A-list supreme actor.
Yeah, I would say Tom Hardy's an A-list actor. He's a known name. Like I remember his name when I see his.
Well, everybody known name isn't an A-list actor.
That's true, but at some point they made an impression on the industry that allowed you to remember their name. Because like I still keep forgetting the name of the actor that's playing Superman in Superman Legacy. It's like, damn, what's that guy's name again?
I don't know. I would say he became an A-list actor probably about the same time about Mad Max and some of the interesting Fury Road, some of those things that going on. He ended up doing a few movies in there where he was like, super epic actor. But before that, there was Star Trek Nemesis, right? And he got pitched to do it. So here's what they had to say. Patrick Stewart says Tom Hardy wouldn't engage with co-stars on Star Trek Nemesis.
There it is, engage.
And he says he wouldn't engage. Listen, you can do this all day long, okay?
I could. I mean, he's doing it, man.
I don't know if he said. Let's see if he said it. Star Trek legend Sir Patrick Stewart isn't a fan of Star Trek Nemesis. Many of us are not, so that's okay. Among the problems he encountered was actor Tom Hardy, who Stewart claims was challenging to work with during their 2002 Star Trek movie. Quote, he said, Tom wouldn't engage with any of us on a social level. Stewart claimed in his new memoir, Making It So.
Making It So.
He never said good morning, never said good night. Does anybody say good night? That must be like an over the pond thing.
I don't. How
about goodbye?
I don't say
good morning,
good night.
See you later, catch you later.
Yeah, I think I'd say see you later or catch you later, probably.
I
actually don't. I just ghost people and go to sleep.
You just disappear. You know what you do? You disappear so that they can't try to talk you into staying. That's what you do.
They're like, all right, well, I'm going to bed. And I go, offline.
So he never said good morning, never said good night, and spent the hours he wasn't needed on set in his trailer with his girlfriend. Oh, well, he's a young man. Patrick, what do you think he's going to do?
He said he was with the old guy.
He's going to hang out with the old guy on the set. No, he's going to hang out with the hot chick in his trailer. He was by no means hostile, added Stewart. It was just challenging to establish any rapport with him. Also about the film, Nemesis, which came out in 2002, was particularly weak. I didn't have a single exciting scene to play. And the actor who portrayed the movie's villain, Shinzon, was an odd, solitary young man from London. His name was Tom Hardy. This is great. Listen to what he said. This is actually fantastic. As for Hardy himself, Stewart admits he never thought he would find such a long career. He said, on the evening Tom wrapped his role, he characteristically left without ceremony or niceties, simply walking out of the door. Stewart revealed, as it closed, I said quietly to Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes, and there goes someone I think we shall never hear of again. He goes on to say, it gives me nothing but pleasure that Tom has proven me so wrong. Although I will say that to have the last laugh, I do think that Patrick Stewart, and who knows what's going to happen with Tom Hardy in the future, but I do feel like he did the Venom movies, and I feel like he's been, I don't know, maybe he got tired, something happened. He hasn't really been, maybe he's taken a break since COVID. I don't know.
He put a lot of effort into the Venom movies, though. Like it was his baby for a while. He was acting in it. He was writing it. He was doing a lot of work for Venom.
He's probably on a hiatus. We will see him back again. The guy's a great actor. And I think it's funny that he just basically said, you know what he said? He's like, these Star Trek nerds, I'm going to come do my job and I'm going to get out of here. Of course, Star Trek Nemesis. We do have a video coming out pretty soon that's going to tell you exactly where Star Trek Nemesis falls in the all-time list of movies for Star Trek. So make sure you guys stay tuned.
You're going to be shocked. It's number 1.
Don't lie to the people. Come on. Yeah, when J.J. Abrams lied about who Khan was in Into Darkness, never lie to Star Trek fans, Brian.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so there's that one.
What was Khan? He was like Jonathan Mills or something like that.
You mean Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the name that he put out?
Yeah.
It was like John Harrison.
Yeah, that's right, John Harrison.
John Harris. Listen, the whole thing is stupid. So I can't wait till you guys see with a big list. We actually went through and did like this whole worldwide list building thing to find out like definitively which Star Trek movies are people like the most. And so we got this list like we did for the series, and that should be coming out here pretty soon.
And it will shock you.
Yeah, it was shocked me. I was surprised by the list.
Yeah.
We got some more Patrick Stewart news from his Make It So book.
Make It So.
He wished that he had Will Wheaton's confidence on TNG. Such a weird thing to say. Like, he wished he had Will Wheaton's childlike confidence.
You know, he would walk around with his penis out like it was no big deal.
It's like, oh my God, that thing's huge for a 14-year-old.
He would wave it around. He would say, look, I'm doing the helicopter, Deanna. And we were okay with it. You know, we were okay with it.
It's always sexual, isn't it, Brian?
But it got really weird when he kept caressing Jonathan Frakes in a way that made Jonathan Frakes very uncomfortable. But his confidence was oozing out of him. It was oozing out of him in the form of a manly release.
Well, Will Wheaton was the only real movie star. I'm not going to give it any energy. I'm sorry. You took it too far. When you turn it into a hollow novel, like your own sexual weird preferences, I just can't. I can't go there anymore.
Get the biofilters going.
That's so gross. Anyways, he said he wished. And I don't know if he's saying this because now he's had a different relationship with Will Wheaton. In his new memoir, Patrick Stewart discusses his issues with Will Wheaton and Wesley Crusher during Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah.
He said, I felt like the teen on the Enterprise concept was a little gimmicky. But I was also put off by Will's adolescent self-assurance. To me, he initially came off as cocky.
Okay, so hold up there. So he felt that the teen on the Enterprise concept was a little gimmicky. Okay.
It was.
So I get it. Like, you're trying to bring kids into it. Okay. But I was also put off by Will's adolescent self-assurance. So that means that Will Wheaton walked in there and was like, so how many movies have you guys done that were like really all about you? Because of course Will came off of Stand By Me. And he was, one of the main characters. And of course, Patrick Stewart had done some things, but he was always, kind of a supporting character, right?
Dune.
And then you've got LeVar Burton, who was in Roots, but he was a supporting character.
And Reading Rainbow,
which is not a movie, but that's okay. But of course, so I don't know. It sounds a little bit like Patrick Stewart was maybe like jealous. Is that the right word? Like, anyways, let's keep reading.
I think he wanted to get it in there so that Will would tweet about it.
We didn't have Twitter back then. Oh.
No. I think that in his book, he wanted to make sure there was a small section about Will in the book so that Will would tweet about it.
I think it's also making reparations, like with people, maybe, with certain people. It said, but as I examined my feelings, I realized that they were not really about Will or some notion that he should know his place as a juvenile actor. That's what it is. You're a kid. Shut up.
Shut up,
which
Will.
is the way it was back then. Nowadays, kids do whatever the hell they want. They reflected my own vulnerability. So let's replay this in proper words. Okay. When he says my own vulnerability, that's like lack of confidence.
Sure.
So he basically was intimidated by a kid.
I don't know.
Do you read this into it? You read those words into it. That's what it was, right?
I don't know. This sounds like a bunch of drivel to me. Sounds like he's like trying to give Will Wheaton props.
It is his memoir, though, so he wouldn't go too far.
He was a theater actor. Obviously a better actor than Will Wheaton.
100%, 1,000,000,000%.
Right.
Always a better actor, and as it would turn out, Will obviously didn't go too far.
Maybe he is dying because he's like, I gotta get this memoir out and tell everyone how much I love them. And can we do one more Picard movie?
He just wants now. It's so funny that now he's like all about doing it, right?
Right.
He wanted to have nothing to do with it. Now he's like all about it.
What happened? Season 1. No, I wanted to be about me and a 20-something-year-old model with my dog on a vineyard.
Yeah.
It sounds like Star Trek, bro. That sounds exactly like what Star Trek is.
Right. Well, this context really kind of tells us like those shut up Wesleys. I think they were real.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was, and it felt real. Like when he did it, you're like, man, he really doesn't like that kid. And he got a rap for not liking kids in general. I wonder if that's kind of the feeling he was given on there.
People hate it when there's some people that hate it when you say shut up, Wesley. They think it's like some kind of like, I don't know, slur or whatever toward Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something to those people.
It was.
It is a slur. Okay, we don't like the guy. He sucks.
No, it was a slur when he did it. It was a slur from the beginning. Patrick Stewart meant it as a slur. Like, oh, you're going to give me this line where I get to tell this kid to shut up? Oh, yeah, it's coming.
Shut up, Wesley.
Even Beverly got to say,
yeah, a few people got to say it.
McFadden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a montage once where it had like 13 people saying shut up, Wesley.
On the show?
Yeah. A lot of people
that
say
many
it.
people?
Maybe not 13. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was it. I mean, there's no real
from
response
making
yet.
it so.
You'll be getting the Will Wheaton response here soon, I'm sure. He takes every opportunity to
talk
his
about
name is
himself.
brought up.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard I was in Patrick Stewart's book.
No, I think what he's going to do is he's going to be like, I had no idea. I thought you all hated me. Yeah, that's what
he's going to cry. He's going to cry on air or something.
All right, where are we at now?
We're talking about, I don't know, actually.
Oh, Lower Decks. Let's
Lower
talk Lower
Decks.
Decks.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it looks like Lower Decks showrunner cast doubt on the series' future.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, this guy doesn't have a ton of experience talking to the public. And I would say it probably wasn't smart what he said. Okay. But it's realistic. Here's the quote. I would say nothing is safe. So he was asked essentially like, here, during an interview with Cinema Blend, Lower Deck showrunner Mike McMahon explained that Star Trek is heading in a bold direction and what that could mean for its current wave of shows. And what he said was, yeah, I mean, listen, we're in weird times. Everything is changing. I think everything's going to continue to change. I would say nothing is safe. I don't have any bad news for anybody, but also I think you shouldn't assume that this stuff is going to stick around unless you're vocally and watch it early on. I don't know what that means. I think what he's saying though is you shouldn't assume that the stuff is going to stick around, and that you should basically consume it now because it could be just removed from the site.
Yeah, and don't watch it as it's being canceled and be like, why is this being canceled? It's so good. Well, it's too late.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, this is like, I've never been more like concerned about not having some sort of, hard media. Because, if you want to watch Prodigy, tough, like it's not going to happen. It's not available anywhere.
Right.
Right. So,
it's on the high seas right now, but yeah.
But legally. Right.
Right.
I tried to put on Breakin' for my wife this weekend. I wanted it. She had never seen it back when it came out in the 80s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's hilarious. Like instead of gangs fighting, they dance off each other. And it's fantastic. Right. And so I'm like looking for it, but guess what? It isn't available anywhere. So, there's things that you can't get. I couldn't find it. And so, what he's saying here is, hey, watch every episode when it comes out because you never know if they're going to be like, you know what? This isn't making us enough money. And I find it interesting, and I'm sure he's going to get talked to about this because the fact that he said that, I mean, he's not saying that this is the case, but him saying this makes me think that he's nervous that could happen to the show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why would he say it unless he thinks it's potentially possible?
Yeah, and you know what? I Lower Decks has really grown on me. It's a just sort of a fun. If it's a fun episode, I saw the most recent episode where they had where they went to the Ferengi homeworld or something like that, and they had Quarks, the Federation experience. And I read that a bunch of the writers got together and actually watched the closing of the Star Trek Experience, the documentary about that. Mm. The one that I'm pretty sure Robert Meyer Burnett worked on.
Yes.
And so they watched that together before writing this episode so they can get the right tone or whatever and aesthetic of the of Quarks. And I find that really fascinating that these people not only are watching the original episodes of Stargate, all the different Star Trek, all the different Star Treks in order to create like all these meaningful relationships. They even watched the documentary about the closed Star Trek experience in Vegas so they can accurately understand that. Meanwhile, you have Discovery writers who to this day have still admitted to never watching any Star Trek outside of Discovery.
Well, but okay, but here's the contrarian point, which I would say, like, Lower Decks that's what they're doing. Like, they're deep cut Star Trek stuff. So if they aren't like really aware of that kind of stuff, then their episodes would come off weird, because that is kind of the good thing about watching Lower Decks is you can kind of get this inside look at the history of Star Trek a little bit, even though it's from like this, wacky, zany point of view.
Right.
So they kind of have to know it. And I'm not saying Mike isn't a fan of Star Trek. He probably is. But the Discovery folks, they're out there just writing their own science fiction shit. Like, they don't, their marching orders aren't, when I was working on this movie thing, I was really impressed because Harv Bennett, who was the executive producer for Star Trek's 2, 3, and 4, he had never watched Star Trek, and but he was hired. He was told by parent, listen, you're gonna take care of these Star Trek movies. And the first thing he did before he did anything else is he sat down and he watched all 78 episodes of the original series. Like, they're on the lot, like put them on and just boom, one after the other, watched them all.
That's awesome.
And when he got to Space Seed, he went, wow, like, Khan's the best bad guy the show ever had. That's who has to be the bad guy. So that's how we got the Wrath of Khan, was because Harv Bennett made sure he knew what he was talking about before he did it. And of course, this is the guy who created the $6 Million Man, a bunch of those TV shows back in the 70s. So, whether you realize it or not, if you're a writer on these shows, and we're going to talk about it more when we talk about box office bullshit. If you're a writer on these shows, it would behoove you, if there is history, to go back and do what Mike's doing, learn as much as you can so that you can write the best thing that you can, because Star Trek fans who are watching your show are going to appreciate that in your writing. When you include things that are deep cut, they're like, oh man, they included those guys. Oh, that's cool.
Archmage Phrase says that the creator of LD only got a job in Hollywood because he ran a Star Trek Twitter account.
No,
that's awesome.
Well, good enough, man. That's good to know that can happen.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that. And I want to ask him to watch, all 150 episodes or whatever. Like,
it's tough. Yeah.
Watch the episodes that are relevant though to what you've been asked to write.
100%. Yeah. If something's connecting to, whatever, and because of the time we're in now, you can easily say, what are the best Vulcan episodes? What are the best Klingon episodes? I mean, it's all out there.
You can literally ask AI to be like, give me the top 10 Klingon episodes of Star Trek, and it will spit something out that you can look up. It's not even that much effort. And there's there's YouTube videos and lists, and you don't even gotta watch the whole episode. You just gotta go do some research, man.
Yeah, give me the best Kelpian episodes of Star Trek, and then it comes up with nothing, zero.
Yeah. You ask ChatGPT the best Kelpian episodes of Star Trek, and your entire computer turns off.
Never mind. Yeah. Anyway, so very cool. We got one more. I thought this was fun because not that it's necessarily super newsy, but because we're waiting for Star Trek Legacy. And as we've talked before, like, we think Star Trek Legacy is the best chance of Star Trek going forward. We know Strange New Worlds is not going anywhere because they got their attention, they got their views. And I know that the studio is pretty happy with that right now. And it's possible that they could shit can everything else that they had planned and perhaps just do Legacy. Paramount is in a lot of financial trouble right now.
Right.
And they're in, and it's just going to get worse. I hate to tell you, everything's going to get worse over the next 6 to 12 months. The American economy is just going to continue to go down. And, Paramount is not going to get in a better place. So
this is
what Mike's talking about.
The only friend.
No, well, this happens every couple decades. It's not the end. But so what Mike's talking about is, you could see them trying to cost cut in a lot of different places, which means you could have very limited you could have limited Star Trek on Paramount, like instead of a lot of new stuff. So, Strange New Worlds is going for a season 3. But hopefully if they do decide they can afford to do something else, it would be Star Trek Legacy. And Jonathan Frakes has come out with his Dreamcast for Star Trek Legacy.
Dreamcast. The Riker's marriage is back on track in my mind. For the show to be able to move forward, Riker would have to be a captain and have his ship. Of course he would.
Right.
Of course. Or he would be promoted to admiral and be a liaison. He has to be on the show.
Yeah, he's already said it. He wants to be on the show. I mean, he's pissed. I don't blame him. Nobody's contacted him about acting. I mean, he kicked ass in Picard season 3, and nobody's offered him anything. I mean, maybe they think he's a director mostly, but I mean, he's got the acting bug back, man. He wants to do it.
I thought it was funny when he's like, or he could be promoted to admiral, but he would be a liaison, which means he'd be on the ship.
Yeah. Well, he talks about himself being like the Charlie from Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, I'm like the Charlie, from Charlie's Angels. They'd have to come to my office one day a week for a meeting with Riker. That'd be perfect. Then I could direct a bunch of episodes and be around the show. He's like...
he's got it. It's like his universe. This is hilarious.
This is what he says. I expect if this goes forward, it'll be Jerry Ryan, Michelle Hurd, Ed Spaliers, and who's now in Starfleet, and Mika Burton.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little bummed out by that. Mika Burton is not as good as the other sister was.
But he has to say that because it's LeVar's daughter. So
That's
if he's
true.
Talking, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to hook your buddy up.
Mika Burton, Ashley Sharp, which I think that's the other one, right?
Yes, it is.
Chestnut, who played Geordie's daughters. I would also imagine Lulu Wilson, who played the Riker's daughter in season 1. No one remembers that, by the way. No one remembers Riker's daughter from season 1.
Did they actually show that kid?
Yeah, they did. She had like face paint on or something.
No, it was very short.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So he didn't want to leave her out. He's trying to be nice.
So it looks like she's actually a decent actress. She can come back, maybe be in Starfleet. Who knows? It feels to me like there's a real opportunity for 3 of the legacy characters' children to carry on and sort of be like the Star Trek, the next generation. It just feels like it's laid out here. It's the blueprint for the next phase. Why does no one talk about Alexander, who was actually on the original show?
We were talking about him.
I know, but none of these actors or producers or writers, whenever they talk about a potential show, they mention the kids, they never mention the one kid who was actually on the show, who would be an adult now.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I think we've all voiced the fact that we would love to see Alexander all grown up.
Right? Yeah. Why not?
That'd be great.
Like a badass, like Klingon. That'd be
It'd be
cool
to see Worf and his son like in a scene.
Yeah, I don't understand. I remember, people go like, "Well, they don't want to do that because they had that one time travel episode where like they showed Alexander as an adult." Like that doesn't matter. They had an entire episode where they showed Picard as old, and none of that matters.
They're constantly ruining time travel. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mika Burton, who is the daughter of LeVar Burton, who played Geordie LaForge on Star Trek: Next Generation. Mika played Alandra LaForge, Geordie's daughter on Picard. Lulu Wilson played a character named Kestra. That's who it was, Kestra, who was indeed Riker and Troy's daughter, but didn't appear in the 3rd season of Picard. Yeah, listen, no one remembers Kestra.
So this isn't the dream list.
No,
it's
his.
I'm being nice list.
This is his. I need to be a part of this series list. And if he gets Lulu Wilson, aka Kestra, on the show, then that just further solidifies the fact that he needs to be there because that's his daughter in the show.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
That's his. Listen, guys, I didn't want to direct. I want to act. I want to write. I want all the budget for this show. Okay, let's get rid of Patrick Stewart. Don't even bring him back. Okay, let him retire on that vineyard with his 22-year-old model friend. And I'll be the admiral that has his own office on board the Enterprise, where they have to come to me when I'm feeling like acting. This is not the normal dream list. Listen, I would definitely keep Alicia Sharp Chestnut, obviously Jerry Ryan and Ed Spaliers. If I'm gonna be honest, and I met Michelle Hurd, and she's very nice. She's a very, very nice person. But We don't need her on that show. We just don't, you know?
I don't mind her being on the show as long as they're not in a relationship.
Yeah, that's just a bummer.
Can't have that.
And that's not like an anti-lesbian thing. That's an anti-stupid. It's stupid to have bridge officers in relationship on Star Trek.
Well, and I will argue that it was unearned from the beginning.
Right.
So they never earned a relationship, and we know how it came about, and it was bullshit. So it isn't anti-gay, it isn't anti-lesbian. It's anti-writer. Earn your shit. If you're going to stick that out there and be brave enough to do it, you better make sure that there's some sort of logic as to how it occurred. So, which it did not.
Yeah.
Let's real quick. We have a $20 super chat from No Money G in the member section. Thank you so much, No Money G, for hooking us up. He says, writers were different back then. I know they always said they wanted non-Trek fans to make Trek. That might have worked in the past, but they need to bring in actual Trek fans and the knowledge of canon in. Could not have been said better. That is what made Star Trek great. Most of the writers who ended up rising, like the cream rising to the top, were Star Trek fans who had watched TOS and desperately wanted to write for TNG. Some people so desperate enough that they were willing to break into the studio and leave their scripts to be read, because back then they said they encouraged fans to. I mean, you're right. That's how you're going to get the great stories. You're going to get if Star Trek fans are writing it, you're going to get good Star Trek stories. Thank you so much, No Money G. Excellent point.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I would argue that's part of what makes Lower Decks such a fun show.
What, because of the writers?
Because the writers are like they understand the series, what they're making.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Right, makes sense.
Yeah,
awesome. Okay, I think that's it for our Warp Factor news.
Warp Factor news.